good dude, but like I'm Happy Tuesday, everybody. It's not just any Tuesday. This is a Tuesday in June where, first of all, it's way too hot because it is 100 degrees at 7:30 here in Denver. But it is also the Tuesday before the PGA Championship at Torrey Pines.
You're close. U.S. Open.
U.S. Open. What did I say? I meant, man, I was just thinking of the last major we did. The U.S. Open at Torrey Pines in La Jolla, California. I'm stoked for this tournament. It's one of my favorites as someone who loves golf, maybe not quite as much as Conor does, but I do love it. A sport I've played for, 21 years now because we're old, man. We're so old.
It's always just such like a good all-around test. Yeah, we are old. It's kind of crazy, but no, like they always set these things up to be just like full-on test of everything, which is, you know, it's been interesting compiling all this stuff today because it's hard to know. It's hard to know who's the guy, but we're gonna try. We're gonna try.
Well, and the U.S. Open is always an interesting field for me because you have people who are qualifying in these tournaments at like their local golf course, but it's a satellite to qualify for the U.S. Open, and they go through all these tournaments, and it's like I remember there's one year I think his name was Zach Johnson. And this was probably like 15, 20 years ago. The dude was a dentist and he qualified for the US Open and he made it into Sunday in like the third to last pairing to go out. Like he was in the run to win the US Open.
Well, so there's guys, I mean, left and right that are, you know, have their full-time day jobs that try and qualify for this. All, you know, so, I mean, it's, you get those wild cards from time to time.
Yeah, which is it's such a neat thing. It's kind of like the NCAA tournament where you see a team like Loyola Marymount Chicago go all the way to the Sweet 16. You're like, I've never heard of this tiny school. You have these guys who come out of nowhere and maybe make a little bit of splash in the U.S. Open. It's neat. It's a fun thing to see. It makes it a fun tournament for me. So we have that, and also the second most important part of the show. We're tasting this bad boy tonight. We've got some Knob Creek Rye 100 proof. I have never had it, and if you've ever watched this show before, I am a huge rye fan. So, and Conor is not, and I'm stoked that I'm forcing Conor to drink a rye tonight. So that'll be fun. See if maybe we can turn him around on it a little bit. See if he can appreciate the ryes for what they are, which is amazing.
Hey, I appreciate them. I appreciate them just fine.
You appreciate them more in other people's glasses.
Correct.
I think. Yeah. Totally.
And after the third or fourth glass of my own, then I really appreciate them.
Well, yeah, but that's when you start moving to like, I don't know, Kentucky Deluxe and PBR, right?
Busch
not
Light.
that we would know from experience, but you know,
never,
not ever. We would never. All right. So tonight, guys, we have, as we have mentioned, a pretty great show. We're talking about Knob Creek Rye and then the U.S. Open at Torrey Pines. It's the South Course at Torrey Pines. If you're familiar with Torrey Pines, there are a few people I know who live somewhat close to the course and have talked about how beautiful and amazing it is. And I would love to play it someday and shoot like a 120, which would be just fine. I still get to play it minimum. So that's what we've got on the docket tonight. We're going to start out, as always, with our bourbon. So, Conor, why don't you kind of lead us into this Knob Creek Rye, since you're the spirits expert and I just love to consume them.
You always give me way too much credit, Nate.
Hey, you actually have a classification, so there you go.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, with Knob, Knob actually, original Knob at least, is one of my favorite just everyday drinking ones. Not a ton of history, but a couple of things to know about it. It started back in '92. Booker Noe, who a lot of people are going to know from having a heavy hand in creating and maintaining Basil Hayden Bakers and Bookers, kind of set out to add another piece to the Beam small batch collection. So that's kind of quick backstory about Knob. All of those that I just mentioned are intended to kind of harken back to a day of like the Prohibition style whiskeys and bourbons. So the name comes from the river that runs behind Abraham Lincoln's childhood house, which is kind of cool. It's kind of a cool little tidbit. And one thing that I like about all of the products in that line is they all are made with a very similar mash bill. Beam, who owns the company, has never really come out and said exactly what that mash bill is, but generally speaking, the Knob Creek's gonna be a little higher in corn. And I think maybe that might figure into why I don't mind their rye so much. It's got a lot of balance and a lot more of a bourbon type of flavor to it. So just a little bit about that. Originally, with Knob Creek, they came out and they were aged for 9 years, and age statement on the bottle, and that kind of went away, and now it's kind of coming back. They're starting to reintroduce that on a lot of their whiskeys. So, but part of the deal there was that they just wanted to kind of go back to the vibe of like, we're going to taste this, we're going to make sure it's ready. We don't need to put an age statement on it because it's freaking good, you know? And so, nowadays, when you are out and about and you see like a single barrel or you see a 9-year, 12-year, or any of those, those are deliberately aged to a certain timeline, still keeping with the flavor profiles, but just getting a little more heightened experience. So with Knob Creek Rye and regular Knob Creek, you can really generally find a bottle for about $29.99, maybe up to like $32, somewhere in there. But there's no time of year that you can't find both these on the shelf. I mean, they're super readily available. They're a staple in every back bar. I mean, that just should be easy to pick up.
They are everywhere. I mean, our little corner liquor store right up the street from here, which, I mean, it's one of those places where some of the bottles are a little bit dusty. They don't have a ton of selection, but they always have Knob Creek. And like you said, like right in that like $25, $30, $35 price range, depending on what you're going for. I got the rye for $30 for the bottle. Not bad.
Out and about today, man, I saw it on the shelf at $28.99. I mean, so you can definitely get it at a good deal most every day. So, anyways, getting into tasting it.
Let's do that. My favorite part.
So the thing that always jumps out at me on any Knob Creek is you get a blast of oak.
Yes, that's very, very upfront on the nose, even too.
Yep, I mean it's right out of the chute. And the other thing too that I love about both of them is it's right in that kind of sweet spot that you and I have talked about a bunch, for me at least, where you're right about 100 proof, so you get that nice burn to it. I like with this that it's got a nice balance of vanilla coupled with the rye spiciness, which plays super well with that higher heat content. So it's got a nice sweet up front, kind of a nice like pepper bite at the back, and it lingers, which I know some of the stuff we've had doesn't.
Yeah, this lingers, but I say I'm a person who enjoys that. I know some people don't.
Oh yeah,
but I enjoy that. Like I want it to stick around. Because then I feel like I need to wait. I can wait longer for my next sip, which makes it last longer before you're crawling up the stairs, which I don't advocate for that. Don't do that. Just have one little glass.
I'm 100% into crawling up your own stairs. You're home. You're not risking your life or anyone else's.
That's true. If you're going to crawl up your own stairs, crawl up your own stairs.
Yeah. Drink responsibly at home.
Yeah. I've got to say the vanilla, I really like how the vanilla balances the pepper and the oakiness in this one. It's not something you get out of a lot of ryes, really.
No, and they actually kind of, I don't want to say market this, but kind of talk about this a little bit, that this is really a bourbon drinker's rye. I mean, this is, if you got somebody like me who, I'll drink ryes, I appreciate ryes, but it's not I'm not going to grab the bottle very like voluntarily too often.
Right.
This one's a little different though, because I can do a lot of things with this, and I still get a lot of the flavors I like, but I can add some of that bite to it if I want that, and that's for me. It's a really really versatile one in that regard, because it doesn't like sour the experience for me, where a lot of ryes do.
This would be fantastic in a Manhattan.
Be fantastic.
I'd really enjoy it in a Manhattan. I don't know if I'd enjoy it as much in an old fashioned per se. I guess I'd have to try it, but in a Manhattan, I like it for sure.
I like it in a old fashioned where you're using like any kind of heavy form of citrusy bitters. So like if you have an orange bitters, something like that, that rye will kind of amplify it.
Totally. I love that. I love that we have so many bitters to choose from these days.
Oh, there's so many good ones.
Well, like, okay, so living in Colorado, where the marijuana industry is booming, obviously.
What?
Our local, right? Have you heard? One of our local, it's a bigger liquor store. You remember, Connor, do you remember Total Beverage? It's like the liquor, it's like Costco for liquor.
Yeah.
There's a new one that opened up, and they have this like crazy assortment of bitters, but they have a whole assortment of like CBD bitters to add to your drink, which I think is really neat. But just having something outside of the Angostura bitters to use is kind of a neat progression in our alcohol consumption. Like give us options.
I use a lot of Bitterman's bitters. They're comes in like a blue bottle with like an eyedropper in it, and they've got a bunch of crazy flavors. And you can, anything that you're kind of in the mood for, you can pair up in an old fashioned and kind of go to town. So those are sweet. If you haven't tried those, it's a little blue bottle. They're usually about $12, $13 a bottle,
and they'll go a long way. That little drop goes a long way. That stuff is potent.
Oh, man,
maybe we're gonna have to. Maybe we should do a bitters review episode.
Yeah, or we could. You and I could build old fashioned sometime, or whatever you want to do. But yeah, it's like I said, something like this is a really good whiskey to just be able to play around with, and there's a bunch of different flavor profiles in that bottle, which is it's surprisingly complex for a $30 bottle. So,
oh, for sure, it tastes like it tastes like a far more expensive bottle of bourbon.
I agree.
Whiskey, for sure. Awesome, man. Yeah, though this is good. Like we try and do every show, every event, we want to bring you something that is easily accessible and on a budget. If you're looking for something good, you don't have to drink Jim Beam. You can get a bottle of Knob Creek and make it last for a minute. You don't have to mix it with Coke just to be able to consume it. You can drink it straight. It's really good. So, all right, we've done bourbon, but we have a lot to get to with the U.S. Open this week. This is kind of a crazy field. So
yeah, there's a lot to unpack on this one.
There's a lot to unpack. So I think we're going to go ahead and let's hit this up here, Connor. What do you think?
I'm in. Let's go. So we're out at Torrey Pines South, like Nate mentioned, out in La Jolla, California. Course is playing about a par 71, about 7,600 yards, give or take. Little bit unique cut line this week. You're dealing with 60 in ties. Normally it's 65 in ties. So that's something to think about, because it's also a bigger field than a lot of these majors are. So, keep that in mind when you're building out lineups, that the percentage chance of you getting 6 of 6 through is not great. So make your picks count. We're dealing with Bermuda fairways. Thanks, Knob Creek. Bermuda fairways, where and they're going to narrow these up quite a bit. So we were out here for the Farmers Insurance event not long ago, and it played, I wouldn't say easy, because this course never does, but it played considerably easier than what you're going to see. So keep in mind the fairways are going to be narrowed. We have Kikuyu Rough, which Nate and I have talked about a couple of times. Kikuyu Rough is generally almost like a tangled mess. It tends to grab your club. It's super penal. When you're talking about not only the type of grass, but also the depth of the grass, which I'll talk about more in a second. But so that's what the rough you're dealing with. And then POA greens. Again, we've talked about that one before too. POA is the weird grass that will bloom throughout the day. And what you'll see a lot of the players doing is kind of stamping down spike marks or inconsistencies in the line they're seeing, because this stuff kind of blooms and grows a little weird throughout the day. So there is a little bit of an advantage to going off early in the day. So if you're playing DraftKings showdowns, that might be something to look at, where you're just dealing with a single day event. As far as the qualifying for it goes, obviously you're going to have guys that are going to tee in the morning and then conversely in the afternoon the next day. So I don't know that you need to stack your full weekend lineups that way. But like, again, if you're playing showdown, it might be something to think about because it does play different throughout the day. Getting back to the rough, though, something that was very interesting. I was listening to a couple of the press conference deals today, and Jordan Spieth brought it up, is that the rough is playing almost as a gradient down the fairway. So as you get closer to the green, it's getting taller. And so if you're, when I was looking at the key proximity ranges, it's kind of a weird thing to look at, right? Because if I'm looking at it from about 175 to 200 out, if they're off course, they're dealing with something a little different than if you're, say, 100 to 125 out and you're off the fairway.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the only thing I'll say about that is that they've also deliberately kept certain landing areas or certain errant landing areas taller than others. So guys that are kind of blasting, bombing, gouging almost, originally I thought might have an advantage just because they were going to be at closer proximity having to deal with this rough. But now I'm kind of rethinking that a little bit. And so it might be something to kind of follow as the week progresses, as more guys talk about it.
A twist.
Yeah, I don't know. They don't do that. I mean, they do it at events, but they don't do it with this level of detail, or at least a level of detail that the guys are talking about. So I don't know. I mean, I really have no concept of how bad it's going to play. We know it's going to play tough, but hard to say how much of a difference it's going to make. And then I guess the other little tidbit to know, Bryson obviously won the last US Open, which was at Winged Foot, I believe. And then the last time there was a US Open major played here was in 2008. It was the year that Tiger won, and it was the year he was damn near playing on one leg. Probably one of the most epic victories ever.
Yes, I remember that.
So we're talking about a long, long time, and there's been moderate changes to the course, but nothing that I think is gonna, like, in terms of the course like layout. I don't think anything that has been changed in the last 13 years is going to impact it that much. It's really more of a focus on where they've narrowed it and what they're doing with the rough. So,
well, then that just real quick, like what you were talking about with the rough, like that's like demonic, devious, dastardly to change that's just crazy because if you think about it, you're probably more likely to hit the rough as you're approaching the green. Like those more like 100 to 125 yard areas is where you're going to be in the rough, not the 150 to 200 to 250, especially at the PGA level. So you're penalizing guys that aren't as accurate with their approach. Does that make sense? Is that maybe something to like kind of consider with how it sounds like they're grooming the course?
So I think what you're saying is accurate in a lot of regards to certain players, but I think the other thing that they're gonna eventually start to do is they'll probably do this more frequently because you've got guys hitting the ball longer and longer and longer. And if I can hit a ball 360, 380 yards and be a half shot pitching wedge in, there's got to be some repercussion for not hitting the fairway.
Definitely.
So I think this is one of the things they'll do over time. Now, it's important to note, though, that they're not like, this isn't super aggressive. Like, this is the gradient style rough patterns is something they're talking about implementing more of, but it sounds like they're kind of playing with a little bit right now. So,
and the major is a perfect time to do it, of course.
For sure, but it's also possible that some of this area will get cut down too between now and then as the practice rounds go, and they kind of see some results or see how it's playing. It may be adjusted. So it's not something to like dwell on, but it is something to know about.
Perfect. So let's get into some picks, dude. What do you think? Oh wait, first, let's talk about the stats you looked at.
Yeah. So on Fantasy
National, myself here.
On Fantasy National, I looked initially at a lot of driving distance, scrambling. I actually did weigh putting on Poana this week a little bit more than I probably do other surfaces. And then I also kind of late this afternoon started looking at greens and regulation. And I'm kind of trying to marry that with scrambling and kind of look at who excels at hitting the greens and reg and who excels when they miss the greens and regulation. Because one thing is for sure this week, people are going to miss the fairway. People are going to miss the greens. You're going to have to be able to get up and down. And I think that ties into some of the ways I set up my picks this week, in that I originally kind of liked the idea of bomb and gouge, and then I kind of backpedaled a little bit from that to kind of say, all right, bomb and gouge is going to work to a point, but we need to find guys that can also get up and down if they have to. Because I don't think there's a huge advantage to accuracy, but there's some of that baked in.
Definitely. All right. So
getting into no more Knob Creek.
No, I'm done with the Knob Creek. I'm great. Okay, so let's get into some picks.
So getting into our top tier, which is our 9K and above, I went a few guys heavier this week than I normally do. We normally try to stick to 3 or 4 picks. This one, I'm going to give you 5 to take a look at. And some of these guys may not be exactly what everyone's looking at, but we'll go through them. So my first pick is top of the chain, Jon Rahm at 11-2. And I think my big thing with Jon Rahm is he typically plays well here. 2, after the COVID debacle a couple of weeks ago, I think he's rip-roaring raring to go. Like, he was running away with that tournament. And
I would think so. Like, man, what a bummer. What a bummer.
And kudos to him, because he's a freaking hothead most of the time. And aside from the initial reaction, like, he handled it pretty well. I mean, he was pretty professional about it. But
well, what can you do in that situation? Like, it's kind of like open and closed. Like, you can't keep going with COVID, I guess.
I saw so many people, though, on Twitter and stuff saying, hey, let him play out at night by himself, or let him do anything. I mean, the guy had a touchdown lead on the rest of the field. I mean, he was so the main point of that argument, though, is he was striking the ball so damn well that I don't see any reason it doesn't carry over to this week. Like, I don't know for sure if he's going to pull out a win here, but I think the form he's in, I thought he was looking good. And it helps too that in terms of statistics, he putts well on POA. He's a West Coast guy. He's 3rd in the field in hitting greens in regulation. I mean, he's 7th in the field in overall strokes gained and tee to green. I like those stats. To me, that says he's gonna be accurate. He's gonna get up and down. He's gonna make putts. And I ran our putting statistic specifically on Poana, so that's his form on POA. So
beautiful.
So yeah, my next one is Dustin Johnson, and this is kind of a weird one for me because, like, Dustin's super volatile in my opinion. When he's hot, he's hot. He putts well, he chips well. I mean, he's one of if not the best player in the world. And his stats in terms of that top tier were actually kind of middling. Like, as I looked at, he was no worse than 35th in terms of the strength of this field, but still wasn't anything that super jumped out at me. I do like him, though, from the standpoint of driving distance. Like I talked about, I think that there is a lot of advantage to being long off the tee. And I think that he also has the chops to do some other things. Like, he's in the low 20s in terms of greens and regulation. He's in the low 20s in terms of the proximity ranges we're talking about. And if he's getting out into that 100 to 125 range, he's number 10 from that proximity as well. So I kind of like his approach proximities. And again, being 9th in the field for driving distance, I think that plays well with that. So we just need a little bit of accuracy out of him, a little bit of putting, and he should be pretty solid pick this week.
I love it.
My next one, this is strictly based on distance, which was a key stat for me. As a matter of fact, if I'm being honest, I weighted it close to 20% my modeling this week. So Bryson DeChambeau, obviously, no surprise to anybody, is number 1 in the field for driving distance.
I mean, have you seen his arms? They're like the size of AJ Dillon's quads, man.
Oh, we should start a meme about that.
Ooh, we should. I love it. I love it. As soon as we get off the show, we're doing it.
Yeah, we got to be first to market with that one.
Yes.
So there are a couple other stats, though, that I really do like about Bryson, and I think this would be surprising to some people, is that he's number 21 in the field for scrambling, which to me was a little bit surprising because when I watch Bryson, I don't consider him to be upper echelon in terms of like around the green wedge performance. And I don't know if it's because of the one length. I don't really know what it is with him, but it seems like every time I turn it on, it's like sketchy shots. The other thing too that I was surprised about is he's number 7 in the field for putting on POA. So he typically is a pretty decent putter, but to be that high ranked on this particular turf, I think that's a good sign too. The thing I worry about with him is if they do play with the rough a little bit and he's still wayward with his drives, I don't know that it matters that you're 340 yards off the tee if you're hitting out a 6-inch rough. So,
right.
So I think he's another one that's got to find some accuracy, but I don't want to be off him this week because I do think that he proved at Wingfoot that penal rough is not necessarily going to be a problem for him because he's so damn strong. And so I think he's a pretty solid play. I'll do this other guy last. So Patrick Cantlay.
Oh man. All right. So Patrick Cantlay. I love it.
So
let's go.
So I like the form that Cantlay is in. Obviously you just got to win now. I think Rahm would have probably waxed the floor with him, but there's no room for pictures on the scorecard. So he's coming off a win. Couple of things I really do like about Cantlay, though. He's a fairly consistent and accurate player most of the time. He is in the top 20 for the proximity ranges we're looking at. He is also in the top 10 for greens and regulations and overall tee to green shots gained. So I like that a lot. If there's a concern I have with Cantlay, it's maybe that his distance isn't quite as great as everybody else's. So, again, I think if it becomes more of an accuracy type of tournament, then I think Cantlay's value goes up even more than he's already at. And to be honest, I think he still hangs with the big boys, even where he's sitting with his driving. So I do really like Cantlay this week. And at $9,100, I think that's also another important call out. Like, it's fairly desolate down at the bottom. Like, you're really gambling. So like, if you can get out of the 5-figure salaries and get down into the 9,000s, I do think there's some value to that and being able to build a more balanced roster. So Cantlay would be a strong consideration in a lot of my lineups.
Well, it's always nice to have that like upper tier guy to anchor your lineup that is still a little bit lower priced, so you can spend money on some of maybe like the mid-range guys that we know we're going to make the cut.
And there's a couple of guys
score you points.
Oh, for sure. And there's a couple of guys right there at the 9,000 turn that I like too, that I could get Cantlay and those guys into one lineup and still probably have about 7,200 to 7,500 to spend on the other guys. So there's a lot of value in that this week, I think.
So this next guy that you're going to talk about, I'm shocked he's on your list. You never talk about him. I thought you hated him because you've never mentioned him before.
Well, I think part of the issue that we've had is you thought his name was Rory O'McIlroy, and it's actually
That's totally it. I'm an idiot. I've never heard his name before.
So I really contemplated whether I was even going to share this on the show because it's going to sound biased as hell, but he did actually rate out number 1 overall in my modeling for the last 36 rounds.
I've seen the model. I have looked at the model. He's not lying. He came out number 1. And when I saw it, I was like, did you skew this intentionally?
I ran the damn thing 3 times and it still spit him out.
Dude, he's one of the best golfers in the world. Like, that's going to happen more often than not, probably, because he is legitimately one of the best golfers in the world.
Well, you can look at my modeling and know this. The first 10 guys I sent to you are also the first 10 guys in terms of overall rank. So, like obviously my modeling liked what we were doing this week because they're the highest priced guys. They're there for a reason, all those things. Now, in my opinion, the problem with Rory this week, just to be transparent, and the only reason I'm sharing this again is because the stats directed me to do it. I really was not going to call out Rory this week, but I think the thing to understand with Rory is that he generally misses left, and this is generally a left to right fade type of golf course. So if his driver is a little wayward, it's going to be a bit problematic. But things I do like about him: he's 4th overall in driving distance, he's 18th overall in approach, and he's 1st overall from inside of 150 to 100. So he's really doing a lot of things over the last 36 rounds that I think people are probably not realizing because Rory's just not winning. And I think every time that you look at Rory and he's not getting wins on the card, people think, oh, he's dog shit, and that's really not the case.
Well, you figure how many golfers have their PGA Tour card? And they're only, I mean, what, just over 30 PGA tournament events a year, like full on tour card events. A lot of these guys may go through their entire career not winning a single event, but that doesn't mean they're not valuable in these DFS formats, because you're not asking guys to win every week. And a guy like Rory, who's going to finish in the top 10 every time, that's a lot of points.
At least frequently. I mean, obviously he kind of screwed a lot of people last week too, which is another piece that or a couple of weeks ago, which is another piece I kind of like, is poor performance. And then you look at what we're projecting for ownership on him. And last I looked, I mean, he's sitting at like right around 13.5%. And that's considerably lower than the rest of the top tier guys. So,
right.
So, I mean, when you're looking at that, coupled with the pricing, I kind of like the idea of throwing Rory in as even a starting point at 9,900. Again, you're sub 10K. You can do some things there.
Right.
So not a bad one to try. And I believe that brings us into our mid tier.
It sure does.
So getting into the mid tier, I'll start with another favorite of mine. No surprise here. Patrick Reed at 9K.
The hothead.
Yeah, but the thing I love about him, he's a lot like Brooks Koepka. He comes to play at these things.
Yeah, exactly. He's focused. Yeah,
100% he is. And another thing that I really, really, really like about him this week, and I actually went back and looked at stats for Torrey Pines as well, specifically. He generally is a really good scrambler. So if we're having issues where we're missing the green, I'm pretty confident Patrick Reed will get up and down, more so than most people. He rates number 7 overall in the modeling that I did. And then I looked at his putting on POA, and he's number 12 in the field for putting.
Ooh.
And then we looked at the combined putting and scrambling around the green. He's 11th in the field for that. So I think that if it turns into a situation where people are having a hard time hitting greens, hitting fairways, all that, I think that only increases Patrick Reed's value. And he's a grinder who's going to go out, and I mean, he's not gonna be stared down by anybody. I mean, he's gonna fight, which you want in a major. So I really do really, really, really like Patrick Reed this week. Tony Finau, who seems to be the industry darling this week, and with good reason. He's got great results here. Matter of fact, I was watching Golf Channel about an hour ago. He leads the field in like 6 different categories, and not the least of which is birdies obtained over the course of playing at this course, as well as right. I mean, so he led the field in bogey avoidance, obviously, which goes hand in hand. He's also, I believe it was greens in regulation. I wish I would have been able to screenshot it, but there's a bunch of metrics that he was number 1 in over the course, over his history at this course. So as far as my modeling was concerned, it didn't love him as much. He came out about number 10 as I was looking at it. The things that stood out to me were he's number 4 in tee to green overall, number 3 in around the green, and then number 20 on approach. So those stats all kind of combined say to me that he's hitting the greens more frequently, but when he's missing, he's getting up and down.
Right.
So I got to kind of jump on the bandwagon and be on board with Finau this week. And he's somebody that I very, very rarely play because he really has some stigma behind him that he doesn't win. And that's pretty accurate.
Well, and I haven't seen you drop him in very often. So, I mean, this could be, maybe this is his week. Maybe this is his tournament. Maybe this is his coming out party. We don't know.
And honestly, there's quite a few people that think it could be. I mean, he's got really good course history. So, and he does show up for majors too. So, I mean, maybe it is his week.
Yeah. So who do we got next?
So Shane Lowry, we all know that I'm always afraid to play him, but statistically he ranked out super high for me as well. As a matter of fact, he was number 11 in my modeling. We were, again, overall great tee to green. He's striking the ball super well lately. And I think that he is somebody who plays consistently better on harder courses. So if the conditions are not great, Shane Lowry is kind of your guy. So I really like that as a play, and he'll find his way into a lot of my lineups.
Looks like we got Matt Wallace next.
Yep, Matt Wallace. And Matt Wallace is just somebody I've been on for a while. I like a lot of things about Matt Wallace. Generally speaking, pretty good ball striker. He's right in the middle of the field for almost everything. The best thing I like about Matt Wallace this week, though, is $7,100. So
good price.
You're getting some salary relief there for somebody who I'm pretty sure will make the cut. Jason Kokrak is my last guy in that range. Jason Kokrak, again, not a guy I play a ton, but what I really stood out to me about him was driving distance. He's number 13 in the field, and then he's number 11 in the field in greens and regulations. So again, when we talk about marrying stats up, we're hitting the ball a long way, we're hitting the green, and that's all we can ask for a guy at 7,600.
Right. I mean, those are good metrics for a guy with that low of a salary, if you will, cap price. I really like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think it's a solid play, and I'm not alone. There are a lot of people that think that's a good play as well, but yeah, that one I'm standing behind. So we're into our bottom tier.
Yeah, this is 7K and below on DraftKings, of course. And it looks like the first guy. So the first guy we've got, Wilco Nienabar.
I'm working on how to pronounce it, but
I tried my darndest, guys. I tried.
So I'm going Wilco Nienabar.
Yep, that'll work.
So this guy's basically got one tour event under his belt, but here's the thing that really freaking stood out to me is if I read you the stats on 10 of his drives in the last tournament, you would think this is Bryson DeChambeau. I mean, it's every single drive is over 320. He topped out at, I think, 376. He finished 14th in that tournament, 8 strokes gained tee to green. The guy has a short game. And he has in competitive play hit a ball over 440 yards. So this is a dude that is going to be arguably a dart throw because he's an unknown, not a lot of experience, but it's $6,900 for sure. After one PGA event, he's 14th in the field for driving distance overall. So
that's crazy. That's wild.
So this dude is gonna be a player, I think. He's a South African, which I generally like. I like the style of golf they play. I like the skill set they have. So I'm all over this guy.
Ernie Els, man.
Yeah, if Louis Oosthuizen. I mean, there's some players. So I really, really like him this week. And the other nice thing about him is not a lot of people are talking about him, despite him playing really well last week. So it might be a good leverage play.
I love it. So this next name, I want to take it because I can say this one.
I'm ready.
Dylan Fratelli at $6,800 on DraftKings.
Nailed it. So
I feel so great right now.
Hey, none of these names are easy, man. None of them.
No.
So here's my thinking on Fratelli, and this is going to be probably an unpopular pick and opinion with people, but hear me out. Fratelli is number 13 in the field overall for number 11 overall in the field for driving distance. He's also number 7 in shots gained around the green, and he's number 28th in the field for proximity from 125 yards. So at 6,800, this is another guy that is a good fill in your roster that I think really has a shot at competing here based on just that skill set alone. Be advised, the dude can't putt.
That sounds like a slight problem. Just a slight one though.
But I think the nice level for the entire field though really is that Poana is tough to putt on. So he's
kind of
probably
levels it out for everybody.
He's not going to be alone. And depending on the tee time splits and all that, if he gets to the cut, he may outperform. So I really kind of like that play this week. And again, I think he's coming in at like 1% owned. So
that's amazing.
Kevin Na. So as long as Kevin Na plays the tournament and doesn't withdraw, the big things I really liked about Na that kind of turned me on to him is shots gained around the green. He's number 1 in my modeling. Shots gained putting on Poana. He's number 4. And then proximity from the longer distance, because he's kind of a short knocker. So I ran a proximity stat from 150 to 175 yards. He's number 10 in the field from that distance. So those things are kind of telling me that he may not hit the ball a mile, but he's getting up and down and he's getting at least close on those deeper shots that he's going to have to hit, where he's going to be a lot shorter than the rest of the field. So, and the other thing about Na is Na can be absolute fire with his putter. I mean, so if we get that kind of a week from Na, he's in contention.
Love it. So next up, we have my brother-in-law, Zach Johnson. Not really my brother-in-law, just the same name.
Is Zach as good a golfer?
Oh my God, I don't think he's ever played golf. Probably, maybe disc golf.
Oh,
maybe. I don't know.
I haven't played that since I left Colorado.
I haven't played it ever. So there we go. So back to Zach Johnson, the golfer, not my brother-in-law.
So that the main reason that I like Zach Johnson this week is 100% to do with the scrambling metrics and around the green and putting. So he's in the top 25 for all of those metrics. And again, just looking for some value down below, he's a notoriously good scrambler and he can putt from time to time. And he would be somebody that if it turns into more of an accuracy game and less of a distance game, he could be somebody that, you know, you're not going to see him probably in the top 10, but he definitely could give you a top 20, top 15 and still score some points. So I do like Zach Johnson a little bit this week, but play him with the intent that you're looking for guys that can scramble well.
So just real quick, straight from Zach's sister, he's never played either. Just so we're clear on that. So, all right. So next up, we have got, I love this name, Wyndham Clark.
Yeah, so everybody and their brother is on Wyndham Clark, and again, for I think good reason. He's number 6 in the field in driving distance, so he hits the ball a long way. He is number 10 in the field for putting on POA, which is actually his best surface, as I kind of did a little research on that. And then he's number 5 in scrambling and shots gained around the green as well. So everything says to me he's going to bomb the ball, and then if he's got to get up and down, he's 100% going to be doing it better than most of the field. And once he's on the green, he's putting better on this surface than anywhere else. So if there's a course made for him, I think it's really this one. And I really like the price tag on him. I mean, 67 to me feels like a bargain for what Wyndham Clark can do. So I'm probably playing a lot of him this week.
And that's what we're looking for, man. We're looking for those values that are maybe people that nobody else is really thinking about or is not on their radar. And that's what we bring. We bring those guys. Like everybody's playing those top tier guys, but we're going to tell you the right ones to play. And then those mid-tier guys, we're going to give you the right ones to play. And these lower tier guys, we're definitely going to give you the right ones to play. And now we're going to move. Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
No. I was just going to say we're going to move into dart throws.
Yeah, dart throws. Let's hit up some dart throws, guys.
I think everybody knows that guy on the left.
Yeah, no, I think he just won a tournament. Like that was kind of a big deal. What's his name? Bill Fickelson, something like that. I don't know.
You're super close.
Connor, do you know his name?
Tip of my tongue. Bill sounds right.
Yeah, Bill. Phil. It's Phil.
Got it. Nailed it.
One of my favorite follows on Twitter. The guy's a riot. We're going to get him on the show to drink wine with us one night. It's going to happen. I believe in us.
We may have to mortgage a house to get him on, but we'll do it.
Nah, I feel like he'll do it for free. Dude has enough money. Like, just come on, make our lives and just hang out with us for like 20 minutes. We just need 20 minutes.
How epic would that be, drinking wine with Phil?
I mean, yeah. I'd be so nervous. Okay, so obviously Phil Mickelson. Phil Mickelson is our first dart throw, guys.
So it felt weird writing Phil Mickelson and dart throw together, but I think
It felt weird when I saw it, but I mean,
so here's the thing. The stats, despite him winning, really don't care for Phil. And I mean, I'm talking he's in the lower quarter of the field. Like, and a lot of the stats. That being said, though, this is his home course. He is coming off of a huge win for Phil. And if there's something that I've seen with Phil over the years, it's like when Phil's got swagger, Phil can go out and just be fire. And
yep,
so I think in a true sense of a dart throw, I think Phil, at least on paper, might not be my first pick, but in terms of overall ability, overall confidence, and just a gut feel, I think Phil Mickelson can come out here and make some noise again. And he's going for a career Grand Slam, so there's that, and the narrative of the home course. So there's a lot of things to like
totally.
about Phil. But again, Phil's super volatile. Phil could be all over the map, and that we'll trunk slam on Friday, but we're hoping,
Right.
So, and that'd be awesome to watch, man. It'd be so cool to watch Phil win this.
You can't. I don't understand. I don't think there's anybody who would ever root against Phil Mickelson. He's like one of the most chill golfers that's ever lived. The guy's like a legend, lefty. And we had to wait so long for him to get that Masters jacket. And once he got it, like he started to win some majors, and it's been cool to watch. And the fact that he's the oldest person to win a major is pretty incredible. And I love that.
Yeah, he's just a guy you want to root for. Like, yeah, I
mean, absolutely.
I just love Phil. So that's my first dart throw of the week. My next one is Lanto Griffin, and so Lanto Griffin is the couple things I really like about him. Again, he's at a price point that I like. He had some decent form going for a while. And overall, in terms of driving distance, he's in the lower quarter of the field. He's number 16 for putting on Poana, which I think, again, is an important metric this week. I really do think that being able to putt on this stuff, it's a talent. And so I just like those two things married up. Like, I like that he can hit the ball and kind of keep up. I like that his approach stats are at least in the middle of the field. And then just the ability to putt on this stuff, I think, is important. So he's, again, a dart throw. He's a guy I just like as a human being. And so I'm hoping to see big things out of him this weekend.
I love it. So our final segment of the night, the last call, our final player, that one guy that no one else is probably talking about anywhere for any reason, but Conor doesn't hate him.
I don't hate him, and I hate him even less at 4.4% owned. 0.4.
That's beautiful.
So unless he withdrew from the time we started to now, in which case don't play him. But
right.
But here's the thing I'll always love about Kiz. Kiz is like the most real golfer on the planet. He kind of tells you how it is, and I think if I really had to lump him into a category, the dude's accurate, he scrambles well, and he historically is a really good putter. So I like the idea of Kisner being able to hit the fairways, being able to at least get close on approach. And if he's got a scramble, the guy can get up and down and he can putt. So his form is horrible. He's not really done anything lately. But again, he's just a dude I love and I want to see him do well. And he does have a skill set that could work here. So if everything's firing together, I don't think Kisner is a horrible play.
I feel like you were just talking about how I feel about Tim Tebow getting signed as a tight end in Jacksonville.
Was that on your show? Did I miss it?
No, I haven't talked about that publicly yet. I'm not ready. I'm not ready to get roasted, but now I just did, so I'm probably going to get roasted. But no, dude, I hear that. I'm like, all of this DFS thing, like the whole DFS world is a funny thing, and I'm not super great at it, not like you are. I'm just here along for the ride. You actually win money. I lose all of my money most of the time. But and something that I started to grasp at the end of this last NFL season that plays to any DFS is you're not looking to get, if you can afford the guys who finish the top 6 slots in any tournament, I need to know what spirit you're talking to that sees the future, that told you to buy these guys, because none of us have the keys to any of this. It's smart plays. And that's what we're trying to give you guys every week is smart plays. We're trying to give you the guys that are under the radar. They're going to make the cut and they're going to get to Sunday. They're not going to win, but they're going to score you points. And when you have a guy who has a 2% rostership in DraftKings and he puts up X number of points, all of a sudden you set yourself apart from the field, and that's how you win.
Well, and I do think, especially in major events for golf DFS, I think it's super important to think about the weird longer shot plays, because when you look at the top 25, 30 guys in terms of pricing and salary, like generally they're going to be chalky. I mean, and by chalky, I mean 15% or higher. I mean, most of the guys, even that we talked about tonight, are chalkier plays, but they're chalk for a reason, you know?
Right.
And so as you go down your salaries, I think it's important to look at guys that have the potential skill set to differentiate and play well that week, and not be afraid to plug them in. And something I always think about with DraftKings in particular is that if you're afraid to build a roster that's a little different, maybe don't put that money into the pool, you know,
Right.
It really, you really have got to have some gut feels in order to excel. And, you know, some weeks you're going to take an L and other weeks you're going to win big, but don't be afraid to play guys that you believe in, even if they're not in their best of form. Like look at what they bring to the table and plug them in.
Well, I think where you're going to win a lot of these contests, or at least place where you're making money, is you win that with the bottom tier and the dart throw type guys. That's where you win, because the upper echelon guys, for the most part, they're going to do what you expect them to do.
And I
maybe
firmly
some
believe
weeks they won't, but most of the weeks they're going to. But if you can hit on some of those lower tier guys, like that's where you make your money.
And major events in particular, like I firmly believe your winner comes out of the top 10 salaried guys. I mean, most of the time. So knowing that you've got somebody up there that's all but a far gone conclusion, you know, you got to start looking down the board. And I'm not saying I have the answers, but I am saying it's something to think about when you're building these lineups. You can't play all the good dudes. You got to find weird ones.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, thank you everyone who tuned in. As a reminder, go buy some Knob Creek Rye. Like, I think we gave it the seal of approval.
Yeah, it was a birdie for sure.
It was a birdie, not an eagle. Not an
yet.
eagle. That's only for Eagle Rare, though, because Eagle's in the name, I think. Reserved. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We hope that these DFS plays pay off. Hit up Connor on Twitter at @Koff_DFS. I am Janate Jack FF, Nate Palvo. He is Connor Coughlin. Thank you for spending the last 52 minutes and 30 seconds of your Tuesday night with us. And we will see you in 2 weeks.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.